So, welcome to the channel. Welcome to this video. Today, I'm joined by the wonderful Frans Stiene over in Holland, and Frans is an international speaker and teacher and author, and obviously practices Reiki as well. And anything else we need to add to that, Frans? Because I know you've
Looks
got a lot
great.
going on. He's written. I've got one of his books, which is The Way of Reiki, which is an absolute gem of a book. If you are interested in Reiki, or want to go that little bit deeper, with the knowledge of Reiki and where we feel that the teachings from Mikao Usui are coming from. But welcome, Frans. It's wonderful to finally meet.
Well, thank you for inviting me and fantastic.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So yeah, so I wanted to delve into Reiki with you a little bit today, obviously. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about because I don't really know much about you prior to Reiki and like your early life. What brought you to Reiki? What got you on this wonderful healing mystical path that you are on?
Well, it's interesting because I was just speaking to a client who's like a new neighbor, and we were talking a little bit about it. And like as a kid, I don't think at one point I think I had very specific experiences, but I didn't realize it, and I wasn't really when you have certain dreams or something, maybe your mom and dad say, oh, these are nightmares. So like they were kind of nightmares for me. And then when I started to practice meditation many years later, I start to have the same experience, and I go like, wow, these are actually not really nightmares. This is actually just a meditation experience.
Mm.
And so I started to confirm this with teachers where I was at that time in the Himalayas. And yeah, but yeah, I was more a party animal. But yeah, when I was 16, I started to have back problems, and they couldn't really do anything besides giving me painkillers and physiotherapy. And they said, oh, when you grow older, it will only get worse. And it did. And so when I was in my late 20s, there were days or weeks where I had a lot of pain in my back and it radiated out through my legs. And I thought, okay, if the doctors can't do anything, I need to do something for myself. This is not going so well. I'm only like 26, 28. And so I started to explore some different practices and teachings. And then this started to really happen mainly when I was living in the Himalayas in India. I lived there for 2 years. And so, yeah, I bought a book about Reiki suddenly, and I got like doing some hands-on healing. There were pictures in it. I'm like, wow, this somehow resonate to me. And then met a Reiki teacher, started doing Reiki training, and then one thing led to another, and suddenly teaching all over the world. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, it's been quite a journey for you then. Did you have sessions before you actually started teaching? Did you have some Reiki? How's the back now? Is the back problem all solved?
I haven't had any back problems since probably even now, probably 18 years. How old am I? Shit. Let's say for a long time.
Oh, well, that's good. What do you think it was then that was causing the back problem? Have
Well,
you
I,
thought
I
much
think
about it?
I had a what they call like the Sherman disease, and it's a problem with your spine. I think mainly also because I started to do really meditation, free up that energy,
Mm,
free up my mind, not being worried about it. Those kind of elements I think is really important. When we have an illness and we constantly holding very tight, like I was really holding tight because I was afraid if I bent down and pick something up that it would go again. And of course, when you hold like this, then when you bend down, you have a problem.
yeah.
So yeah, really with a lot of these practices, opening the openness of my mind and therefore the more increased current flowing through my body or
Mm,
becoming more aware of what was there in the first place. And yeah, those elements over the years have definitely helped me a lot. And I'm completely pain-free now. I do, as we were saying in the pre-chat, started physical training with a personal teacher, trainer. Yeah, no problems at all. So what is great.
Good.
In fact, I'm in my late 50s, and I feel stronger now than when I was in my late 20s.
Yeah, yeah. It's strange that, isn't it? How when we change our lifestyle and change our mindset, we actually become stronger individuals. And I think when we're younger, we're so ingrained in, I suppose, following the crowd and being the trendy and following the theme or whatever it might be, you know. And like you say, you were the clubber and all, you know. I think we all go through that phase, and then when you step into your own genuinity, if that's even a word, you know, of just being yourself, that you become more self-empowered. You become something shifts internally.
Oh, absolutely. And I see this a lot, you know, like even now I was just meeting up recently with some friends who are all my age, and they're all, oh, I've got pain here, I've got pain there. You know, some felt quite old, but that is also a mindset. You know, when we grow older between brackets, then we believe that we have to have pain and discomfort. And so this is also what we focus on. So it's a really interesting element to go deeper within ourselves and into that spaciousness, and to realize that the whole concept of these labels, what is old or what is young, what is fit or not fit, a lot of this is really created in our own mind, and therefore our energy and body react to what is happening in our mind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which then takes us into the realms of Reiki, because that's to
Yeah.
do with calming the mind and getting rid of the worry and the anger and all those negative energies, so that you can then harness the positivity within life and within every single day. So getting into Reiki, and the book itself in general, the Way of Reiki, reading that, is it really, for me, it shifted my perception so much on Reiki after reading that book, because I think I mean, when we get taught and go through the process, it starts off being quite mechanical.
Yeah.
And then as you develop and you learn a lot more, and you read into different things and whatever, it becomes so much more fluid, and you go more internal and listen more to yourself and your inner guidance. And is that how, was that straight away for you, or was it the same sort of process where you had to develop?
Same sort of progress. In a way, I was very lucky because the first year when I started to practice the system of Reiki, I was kind of on a sabbatical in the Himalayas in Japan. Oh, right, no, in the Himalayas, sorry about that. Not in Japan, in the Himalayas. Um, and so I had a lot of time to contemplate. There were lots of healers there as well, lots of very wonderful masters who were still living there. And so from that, lots of guidance. And then when I went to Japan, I started to train with Japanese teachers. And since 2012, I trained with a Japanese priest. And
Hmm.
that all really helped me to really shift that from the mechanical side, or seeing maybe that Reiki is something outside of ourselves and we have to channel it into someone else, to really feeling like in very basic language, I'm the universe is me. So, you know, if I say I'm channeling it, that would be say the same saying, oh, the ocean is channeling itself. It's almost impossible. So, so I've been very lucky to meet the right teachers at the right time, and also teachers who had a very direct experience of their own inner luminosity. So yeah, the guidance was great, and all of them use a very simple language. What I like, I'm not a very intellectual person using very difficult language. It doesn't work for me. And so I like that very simple language, very simple way of being. And the more, therefore, also we practice and engage with all the practices within the system of Reiki, then we can really start to feel and sense this within ourselves. We feel a certain inner freedom coming, an inner fluidity, as you say. And then we can be free in our daily life or flow easier through life.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So true, so true, and it's again beautifully written and explained in the book, and um, going through the precepts, because I know that is like the foundation of Reiki, and I know you talk a lot about the precepts. What is your just for the video, because obviously I've read the book, so I know what your understanding is, but what is your understanding of the precepts or the Reiki principles, just for people who are watching this video?
Yeah, I mean, you see them behind me in Japanese. And for today, do not anger, do not worry, be grateful, be true to your way and your being, and show compassion to yourself and others. It looks very simple. In a way, it is simple, and yet it's super complicated. There's also some other parts of the precepts, of course. Um, for me, I really see the precepts is a description of your true essence, of your great bright light. The more we tap into our true essence, what is ultimately already there, then of course, no anger, no worry. Then, of course, the quality of this inner luminosity is gratefulness, is being true to your way and your being, and being compassionate to yourself and others. And in a way, we can see this to these little kids, like say we two little friends playing in the sand pit, and you give me a whack on my head, right? These things happen. And then, but the next moment we're friends again,
Mm,
right? That anger doesn't linger, the worry doesn't linger.
mm,
And then, but if we do this now, I'm at your place and you give me a whack for whatever reason, and then we might not speak again for the rest of our life. So suddenly we hold on to this anger, and we see in this openness in these little babies is just so. I was sitting in a cafe and a friend came in with a baby. It's only a few months old. And, it's looking at everything with wonder, not even fear, knowing every person, every object, there is a wonder in it. And unfortunately, due to society, upbringing, we box that in. And
yeah,
of course, when we box this in, then our mind is boxed in and our energy is also boxed in, and then it cannot flow anymore.
yeah, yeah. Very true, very true. Wonderfully put. Do you think as well, the more healing we do on ourselves with the self-healing and then working with other people, and we expand our awareness, that we start to see people in a different light as well, and you can see
Oh,
what's going
yeah.
on with people.
Yeah, I often don't talk about these things, what I see or whatever, but I'll give you one example. I was walking on the street and there was a friend sitting there having coffee with another female friend. And come and sit down. And so I sit down, and the other friend of the friend, her husband arrived. And they were really kind to each other. They were chatting. And so I was only there for 10, 15 minutes. I said, okay, bye, see you later. And so the next day I bump into my friend again. It's a common reoccurrence with this particular friend. We always bump into each other. And I said, what is wrong in their relationship? And she goes like, how do you know? I said, there was something
Mm,
very clear. And
mm,
she said, yeah, but they were really friendly with each other. I said, yeah, but I could still see it. And
mm,
she said, well, it's funny that you say, because 2 days before that, she was telling me about the issues with her husband. So yeah, we become a little bit more, for me, I like this in Mikusui stitching. We have the Reiki 3 symbol and mantra, and if you translate it, it means great bright light. So actually today it's really sunny here. And so when there's lots of light, there's also lots of clarity. We can see things more. So for example, the light now shines under my sofa, what is over there, and I can see, maybe I should vacuum there. There's some dust. So if there's no light, then I don't see the dust.
mm,
So it's the same. The more we tap into our own inner luminosity, the more we see our own anger, or where we hold on to things, or where we get worried about, or we get clarity that we keep following our confused thinking. So
mm,
this luminosity is very important. And because then we start for ourselves, oh, actually, I'm getting caught up in the melodrama of life. And then the more and more I can let go of that melodrama of life, then it's easier with that luminosity to see this also in other people or in other things.
Right, okay. Because I know you talk a lot about on one of the Facebook pages, Reiki Healers UK. You do talk. A lot of people mention about when they see things during healing
Mm.
sessions, or then they become so fixated on it that the sort of awareness drifts from the actual session, is more interested in the colours or whatever's happening. So is that sort of the similar sort of thing that you're talking about? Is to not be sort of like pulled away from it?
Yeah, I mean, this is indeed, like we're then pulled away of this clarity. I often explain it a little bit like this. Where I live, there's a big shopping street. And if I would walk from one end of the shopping street all the way to the other end of the shopping street, and I get distracted by all the things I see in the shop and start to analyze all the things I see in the shop. But at the end of the shopping street, I will be exhausted. I'll be tired. I'll be confused. I will be like overwhelmed. And we see this by a lot of new practitioners, but also a lot of existing practitioners, that they feel very exhausted and tired. And
Mm,
that is because they're getting distracted by what they see or experience or smell, etc. And so they're being, as you said, it's so lovely, is they're being pulled away of this open spaciousness into this more narrow mindedness where we label things. And this labeling I find very tricky because it's so individual. I mean, in a Reiki 1 class, I always explain it. I said, say we see a beautiful, say we see a red sphere around your heart center, Ian. One person might say, oh, that means love. Ian has lots of love. The next person, for them, red means anger. So they say, oh, this is angry. He has got some anger issue. Another person who maybe comes from Asia and where red means maybe being lucky. Oh, Ian is being lucky. He's going to win the lottery. The
mm,
fourth person has colorblind and say, what are you talking about, red? I don't see red. The other person has jaundice, and so the color is different and says, oh, it's orange.
mm.
So we all put it through our own filters.
Yeah,
And therefore, it's just as it is,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And the more we leave it as it is without putting these labels on it, because as soon as I put a label on something, it's already not anymore what it is.
Yeah,
You kind of constrict it.
yeah,
And when I constrict it, then if I use my hands, is this constriction, then I can ask myself, is the energy flowing? Yes or no? No, it's not flowing anymore. And
mm,
this is when we see when people get caught up too much in it. And it's okay to observe this. Yeah, of course, I'm not walking from one side of the shopping street all the way to the end with my eyes closed. I leave my eyes open, I leave my ears, nose, whatever, but without constantly grabbing what I'm seeing with
y-
all my senses.
yeah, yeah.
And therefore, I stay free, I stay open without constant labeling, analyzing. This means this is that. Drives you crazy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because you're just constantly seeking, you're constantly searching, and
Mm.
never in the peace of the actual moment of where you are
I
with
mean, this is
yourself
enough.
or with the client. Yeah. So, I mean, do you sort of see things or experience things through sessions, and then how? I mean, obviously you've been practicing for a long time, so you've worked on that inner stability and focus. But if you do experience anything, what do you do? Do you think about it, or do you just keep yourself?
I see it a bit like this. You know, when you have a book, I don't, oh, hang on. I very quickly grab something. I see it a bit like this, Ian, like a session for myself or for someone else. It's like this, right? And now the energy it flows nicely, right? It's not being stuck.
Hmm,
So every moment is a new moment. But if I suddenly go, oh, I wonder what is this?
hmm,
Now already the flow has stopped. I
hmm,
need to analyze it, I grab it. So I do see, feel, sense, smell, taste, depending on the person, depending on the moment. But I try not to grab it. It's just there. And then sometimes when my client, for example, afterwards said, "Oh, Franz, what could you feel or see?" I always flip that question around and I said, "Is your treatment, what did you feel and see?"
Mm.
And then they might say, "Oh, I felt this or this and this." And then they said, then they might say, "Franz, what does that mean?" Like, say, maybe they see a red glow and they say, "Franz, what does that mean?" I said, "You have to investigate at home for yourself. What does that mean for you? Because I can give you my interpretation, but it is my interpretation.
Yeah.
What does it mean for you?"
Yeah.
And then this for me also is very self-empowering. You're empowering me as a practitioner not to get caught up in this labeling and saying this means this to the other person, or I know better. And then you actually self-empower the other person to do some investigation.
Mm.
What could it mean? And I always say also, try not to look it up on Google because, or in a book, because then you again get another person's interpretation.
Yeah.
For example, if I want to know about a tree, I can read a book about trees, right? But that is another person's interpretation of a tree.
Mm.
It could help me, of course. Yes. So if we want to investigate a tree, we can read a book, but that is another person's perspective of the tree. Of
Mm.
course, beneficial. But the best way for me is to go to the tree, touch the tree, feel it, sense it, maybe feel actually the oneness of the tree and in the interconnectedness of the tree. Then it becomes a very personal experience.
Mm. Yeah.
And this is the same thing. For example, say we have some chocolate. You might really like the chocolate, and another person goes like, it's so, and I go like, no, I don't like it. So
Mm.
we already know that by if you have three different people and you let them look at an object, that we have a different perception.
Yeah.
We have a different taste. So therefore, I always bring it back to the individual. What did you feel? What is your experience, not mine experience?
Yeah.
This is why I like the precept gyo or hakame, often translated as practice diligently or work hard, but gyo can also actually mean pure experience. And so I have a different pure experience than your experience. So
Mm.
therefore, it says be true to your way.
Yeah.
It doesn't say be true to Mikusui's way or to Francis' way. No, be true to your way.
Yeah.
And your way is slightly different than my way.
Yeah. That's beautifully put. Because it is so it's so organic, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
just such an organic process, and it and like you say, like one person's perception of feeling into something is totally different to the next.
Totally different. And for example, I also explained it. Say I do a treatment on you and I see a lot of blackness. One person might be scared in the night, even have a little light on in the evening while they go to sleep because there's some fear. And so, oh, this is really scary. Another person might say, wow, it felt like the night sky was so open and so soft. And so, again, who is right?
Mm,
Is just an interpretation of an individual.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And this is why I think to come back to the precepts again, it's the foundation. Nowhere in the precepts it says interpret anything. It doesn't say actually anything about energy, it doesn't say about what we need to see, but it's really a for being true to awareness, being compassionate. Then that is our right already a life of luminosity,
mm,
and therefore people can already in your daily life without even the need of hands-on healing can tap into your luminosity.
yeah,
Because if you walk in town with a smile or you walk in town with anger and worry, that already gives off a very different vibe.
mm, yeah, yeah. So what's it like in Japan? What's it like training in Japan with the Japanese priest and doing everything that you do over there? It must be, it must be tough going.
Yeah, yeah. I was saying the other day to someone, I said, when I go, I get a lot out of it, but is not that I go like, yes, I'm going to do some training. These priests are very ruthless. They challenge you. They press your buttons. You start at 4 in the morning till midnight or something for 10 days, full on. And I like it that they press my buttons, because then I'm aware that I have these buttons, and they can only press the buttons because these buttons exist,
Mm,
right? So if your partner or someone at work or in your neighborhood, oh, this person is really pressing my buttons. No, these buttons exist. It's like you're walking around in town with a big red knob somewhere, or maybe, and like, here's a button, please press it. You
yeah,
know, so if there's no button, no problem.
yeah,
So they have such a clarity and such a wisdom that they exactly know where to press these buttons to say, see, Franz, you do get angry or you do get worried when you're pressed into certain areas in your life, in the circumstances. And then also when we know there is a button, then I can do something about it.
yeah,
If
yeah,
I'm not made aware of that, I actually constantly get angry or frustrated or worried, then I cannot do anything about it. So again, for example, to come back to the dust underneath the sofa, if I'm constantly coughing and it's like, oh, I feel a bit irritated, maybe I'm allergic for things, and yet there is lots of dust in my apartment, but because there's no light, there is no clarity, I don't see it. So I start to take medication, it's not working, and blah, 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 blah. But if I tap into this light, I go, oh, this is the reason I have some allergic reaction. There's a lot of dust. I better vacuum.
yeah.
Problem solved.
Mm. So the answers are already there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed, yes.
Yeah. And have you found over the years of meditation, your meditation practice, have you found your intuition and your answers, your inner light, just become more and more expansive and vibrant? And how does it work
Yeah,
for you?
yeah. I mean, it's hard because I find it very difficult to express that, in also in a lot of these teachings, what I do, they always say, don't talk about this in public. It's for you or for you and your teacher. But yeah, there is a more clarity, specifically also for myself. So, for example, in Zen, there is a wonderful story by Sunrei Suzuki. And I like this. It says you keep the front door open and the back door open, and the thoughts come in through the front door and out of the back door, but don't serve them tea in the middle.
Mm,
Normally, we give these thoughts a lot of tea. That's why we can't sleep. That's why we get anxious, worried, fearful, you name it. And therefore, also when we get stuck, we get like this, we give it tea. And so the more and more I practice, the more I also notice, oh, Franz, you're giving this thought tea again.
mm,
Like there is a some recognition. And that is actually really great. So in these traditional teachings, that means you can take your thoughts as a tool to get to a state of no thought. It's not that we close the front door, because as soon as we close the front door, there's constant knocking of these thoughts.
mm,
So we become, oh, there is a thought, and I'm getting caught up in the thinking. The thought itself is not the problem, right? If the thought just comes in and out, no problem at all.
mm.
But as soon as I grab the thought and I get caught up, we all know that we cannot sleep because one thought keeps going round and round and round, right? Rapidly.
Yeah.
And we and and then we cannot sleep, or then we get irritated, or we keep holding on to our anger and our worry and our fear because there's one thought about an issue or about something, we keep grabbing it. And so therefore, the more we practice, the more we also see this thought process. So my teacher once did something very, for me, profound. Actually, it's very simple. And it really made me look at things in a quite an interesting way, because he was just doing this. He said, if you have lots of thoughts like this, then you don't notice that you have these lots of thoughts. But if it's very quiet in your mind and suddenly you have these thoughts, then that one thought stands out really big. It
Mm,
becomes very, very clear. So the more we do these meditation practices and we become more and more calm inside, we could be dancing, we could be joking, we could whatever, we can still have a very calm mind. But then when suddenly we get caught up in this one thought, it stands out really, really clearly. And we go, wow, I'm actually getting caught up in this one thought.
mm. Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting and so powerful. So powerful. Yeah. So hands-on healing itself is quite minimal, really, isn't it? Like in the Japanese teachings as such, it's more about the philosophy and keeping the inner stillness and finding a great bright light and the precepts. But what does a hands-on healing session with Frans Stiene look like?
Yeah, I mean, like uh, in in those traditional teachings, the hands-on healing is a byproduct of remembering your inner luminosity. So the more we remember our inner luminosity, of course, then there is more light between brackets to help someone else.
Mm,
And I don't really see that we heal anybody. We're more a facilitator. And for example, this morning I did a treatment on a new client. She's a neighbor. We've chatted before, and she wasn't feeling so well. And I explained it to her as well. I don't really see that I'm doing the treatment on her, because she also already has this inner luminosity, and I have this inner luminosity. So it's like two candles coming together, and it's not that the one candle is not on, because our inner luminosity is always there. For some people, it doesn't look like it's there, but it's always there.
yeah.
So when the two candles come together in that light, it makes one big light. So after a treatment, I feel fantastic. I can do 10 treatments in a day and I feel fantastic. Of
Mm,
course, maybe my legs hurt a bit because I'm standing. I don't really often sit so much during a treatment, but my mind and my energy feel fantastic after 5, 6, 7, 10 treatments of an hour. I feel great. Why? Because I'm not giving anything. It's more about being together in this luminosity, in this spaciousness. And then, of course, that spaciousness and this inner luminosity allows the other person to see what's going on with them, so they can also go like, oh,
mm,
I don't need to hold this. I
yeah.
don't need this little stick. It's for knocking on this little ball. Is very light. But if I hold this for the whole day, or if I hold this for 10 years, it becomes very heavy.
Mm,
And so the whole practice is ultimately letting go. Even the idea of letting go, we have to let go.
yeah. 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 Wow, I love the way you explain things so simply to make people just understand it, the concept of how you're trying to explain it. Just the idea of holding a stick, you hold it for a short period of time, you're fine, but if you hold it for 10 years, then your arm is want to drop off. And we
Absolutely.
do that, don't we? We hold on to. Why do you think people hold on to so much? Is it it's protection? Do they think it's protection?
I think like on the deepest level, if we look at the precepts or the whole system of Reiki, is uh, all about the false idea of I, me, mine,
Mm,
right? And so we hold on. You, as soon as there's an I, there is also a you. And then you did that to me. And
mm,
then I want to hold on to it,
mm,
right? Because I want to blame someone. I, me, mine, right?
mm,
It's all very much like this. But if we investigate properly through the meditation practices, etc., we come to realization that we cannot find the I at all.
mm,
And so it's a false construct what we have created. For example, I didn't come out of my mom called Frans. So the first thing is my mom and dad stuck a label on me called Frans. And now the other day someone called me Frank. Hey, Frank. I don't really care because I know it's just a label. But some people then go, hey, but I told you already 10 times my name is Frans.
mm.
And they get angry.
Yeah.
And if they investigate, they get angry because of one fucking letter, right? But this happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we do one typo and a word becomes different and we get angry about it. And what means we hold on to an issue, maybe what was just one typo, one letter mistake, and we hold on to it for years.
Mm,
And it is just one letter. It's just being completely crazy. And if we investigate like this, we start to really see how ridiculous it is, because then I cannot be free if I'm constantly holding on to things like this.
mm,
I cannot be free. My energy doesn't flow. I get really quickly tired. Start to feel really old. I start to feel stuck. Start to feel depressed. Let it go.
mm.
No need to hold on all these things.
Yeah. I was walking through town today, and something I'm a big advocate of is the way people speak to themselves
Yeah.
and the language that they use to themselves. And I was walking through town today, and a lady was on the phone to somebody, and she'd said that she was stressed to death. And I'm like, wow, you're actually telling yourself that you're going to die of stress.
But this is it, right? We tell ourselves a lot of things and a lot of negative talk, all of these ideas, what are just labels and we have created. And of course, we can say, we can blame another person. Yeah, but my mom or dad always told me that I cannot do anything. But you took it on board, you held on to it.
Mm,
So for me, yeah, also, and this is particularly in Japan, these teachers talk about self-responsibility. They say, don't blame your mom and dad.
mm,
Don't blame society. Take self-responsibility. No matter what had happened, take self-responsibility to open your hand and let it go.
mm.
Yeah, but they did this to me. No, let it go. It's done. It's past. And as we all know, I cannot change the past. It's
Yeah,
impossible.
yeah,
So the only thing what we can do about the past is let it go and don't make it an obstacle for living in the present moment.
yeah,
But this is what we do. We get so caught up. And this, in a way, it it's not in the precepts, but it is in the precepts. Because if we look only at the words in the precepts, we don't see it. If we meditate and contemplate with the precepts, we do see it. And that is this. Why, when we look at do not anger, anger is something what happened 1 second ago or 10 years ago. So, in a way, it means don't hold on to the past.
mm,
It doesn't say that don't hold on to the past, but it's there,
yeah,
right? It's hidden. And we can only rediscover this when we do our meditation practices. Do not worry. What do we worry about? What's going to happen in 5 minutes' time or in 10 years' time? So it's about the future. What are we not grateful for? Most of the time, that is not being grateful for the present moment. I don't like the water. The water is not cold enough or not hot enough or not the right temperature. It's raining, right? All of these crazy ideas. So we're not grateful about the present moment. So the first three precepts is really about don't get distracted by past, present, future.
Mm,
Relax.
yeah, yeah. It's wonderful when, and really, I mean, I knew about the precepts, but after reading the book, The Way of Reiki, and going really deeply into it, into the text and the meanings, I was just like, oh wow! It sort of opened something in my mind, and I was just like,
Mm.
ah, right, okay. It pushed that button, and
Yeah.
and it really helped me.
But this is it, Ian. Yeah, as soon as we intellectually understand it, then that has a ramification already on my mind,
Mm,
right? That therefore it has a ramification on my energy and my body.
mm,
So not so long ago, I was reading this book. There was one sentence in this book, and I was reading it again and again for over an hour. It just kept triggering these drop of the penny, like, geez, how I haven't seen it. And it was just like a ripple effect. But
mm,
again, we need to be ready to see it. We have to have the openness to see it, the willingness to see it. So if I read a book with already a narrow mind, very difficult. If
yeah.
I go to teachings with a narrow mind, already very difficult. So to really receive, I need to have an open mind,
Mm,
right? For this bowl to receive, say, tea or water, it needs to be open, it needs to be empty,
mm,
but very difficult. Even in relationship, if I step into a relationship, we already have preconceived ideas. I want it like this, I want this, and we like this. This is, I think, why so many relationships trend already really quickly because we find it very difficult to step into this openness space.
yeah. Yeah. Do you get any when you're doing your teachings and your retreats, do you get any students that have had previous teachings and then you're trying to explain your way of teaching and you're having to bring them into a new level of understanding? Do you ever have that?
Yeah, definitely. Like for example, at the retreats or specifically also my Reiki 3, Shimpuden, master teaching courses, I get a lot of existing Reiki teachers who have done somewhere else. Um, the majority, 19%, comes in with a very open willingness, and then it is very easy. Um, and for me, it's not saying you have to do it my way.
Mm,
I give them ideas, and we do very specific practices so that they can actually sense it and feel it and understand it in their own way.
mm,
Uh, and even then, I say, you don't believe me. Go home and investigate, right?
yeah.
For example, I can talk about honey and I can say honey is sweet, it looks like this and this and this, and then I can believe it. That's a bit stupid.
Mm,
But if they go home, buy a pot of honey and try it, then, oh, now it makes sense, right? Like this. And then occasionally you get someone in a class who comes in like this, very difficult
mm,
because they're already stepping into something. I know better. I just come here out of curiosity. But it's the same for healing.
mm,
When I would lay down for a healing, no matter if that's acupuncture, a massage, or a Reiki session, I need to make sure that I'm open. I need to make sure that I'm as open as possible without any preconceived idea. If I have a headache, and the practitioner starts my stomach, and I think, oh, but I've got a headache. They need to put their hands on my head. I'm already like this
mm, yeah.
because maybe my headache, maybe the practitioner can see or sense that the headache actually comes because I've been to McDonald's too many times, right? And my stomach is not so happy,
Mm,
for example.
yeah, yeah. And how do you get past that sort of to be able to open them up to your way of teaching and your way of thinking?
I think we all use different things, and for me, I like humor. I was actually, as a kid, I was a class clown, so I haven't really tried to do anything specific with it. Um, but I was speaking to a friend of John Cleese. You know John Cleese from Monty Python, and he was telling me this guy I know in the US, and he's a very good friend of John Cleese, and we were having lunch together. And he said, one thing is that John always says that he also wants to impart certain teachings, about being kind and open and flexibility and whatever. And he said, but the way John says, I first make them laugh because then they're more open. We already know this, right? When we're laughing, we do a deep belly laugh. So we're breathing in much deeper. Therefore, we are more in our body. We're grounded. When we're laughing, we feel a little bit more, I can handle the world a little bit. We feel a little bit less like this. And so then easier to do.
Mm, yeah, really good. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah.
And actually, in fact, and this is, I trained with a Taoist teacher for 12 years. And she came from a Taoist community in China. She was brought up already from the age of 3 into Taoism. And the first time I was teaching overseas and I came back and we had a session, said, Frans, did you have fun? I said, yeah, I went to a museum and I went to this and this. No, I'm not saying that. Did you have fun in the class? And I go like, yeah, I stood on a chair and we laughed and we had some jokes. And he said, great, keep that in it. And I go like, why is this? And she was saying, these are her words, okay? She was saying, okay, in China, but I think it's a general thing. When we tap more and more into this inner luminosity, she said, some people become too rigid.
Mm.
And she said, especially men. It is because suddenly we have a little bit more, there's luminosity, but then sometimes also we become a little bit too ego driven.
Mm.
Oh, I can see this, I can do this, I have Reiki, I have this, and then it becomes again like this. So there is a slight opening, and then because of our habitual patterns, we grab it, and then it becomes an egocentric drive again. And then, particularly if we start to teach, oh, look what I can do, look who I am now. And
Mm.
then this becomes very tricky.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is also, Ian, why on my Instagram, I post a lot of my weekly life. And no matter if I'm going partying, I still like to party occasionally, not every day, but once a week, maybe just little dancing somewhere or out for dinner. And I post these things also specifically, don't take life too serious,
Mm.
right? And I see this a lot by people who teach a lot. And then they go, now we're going to talk about spirituality because yes, it needs to be like this. And I go like, shit, no, this is just you put another label, on it, you put another mask on. You're just not your genuine self anymore. You put now a spiritual mask on, and it's still a mask.
Mm.
Still cannot see what is beyond there because you just have put another mask on. You step from one box into the next box, and you just call this the spiritual box. You still haven't freed yourself.
Yeah. 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 And I think the experience. I think a lot of people talk about things in that context, and a lot of them don't really speak from like experience. They speak more from what maybe they've read or what they've seen or anything like that. And I think the experience is so important, to be actually in it. To be in that experience of what you're feeling and what you're going through. It's so important.
Absolutely. In these traditions, what I being taught by my teacher, they call it you become like a parrot. So you're just parroting what you've read, but you haven't really had the direct experience. And
Yeah.
this is a little bit I sometimes do it in a class and explain it like this. Okay, everybody, you all have an idea what Paris looks like. right? Maybe the Eiffel Tower or a river, or you've seen a movie. So you can explain a little bit about Paris, but you haven't been there yet.
Mm,
Some of you who have been there, if you keep asking, they come with a very different picture of Paris,
mm,
right? And so now you know, oh, they have really been in Paris because they talk from their direct experience. The other person has just read a book or seen a movie and they haven't really been there.
yeah.
So we can also investigate like
Mm,
this.
yeah. Yeah. And it becomes, I suppose, the experience in itself, it becomes that inner knowing, that inner belief that you've got. And
Yeah.
then that inner belief, it takes us back to what we were talking about earlier on, the belief that we hold within the mind. If that's
Yeah.
what we believe we are, it's going to have that effect on the body.
Yeah. This is what they call like inner faith, right? If we just read something or we hear something and we start to practice and teach from this, then if someone else comes in and challenges us, we get angry or we
Mm,
get upset, we feel threatened. That means your inner faith is not strong enough. It
mm,
means you haven't had the direct experience yet. If you really had the direct experience, you have this inner faith, then that becomes as stable as a mountain. No matter what someone else says, you know for yourself 100% that what you're teaching is completely clean and right.
yeah.
So uh, there's this story of in the Himalayas, they have these lots of stories. And I like those kind of stories. And there's this yogi in a beautiful garment sitting, teaching, right? And so this very raggedy looking yogi comes along and listens a little bit. And in the break, this raggedy looking yogi goes to this yogi on a throne who looks very beautiful and said, "Your teaching stinks." And so this yogi on this chair gets really angry and so like this. And so finally he's calmed down a little bit. And the raggedy looking yogi says, "You see, I only said 3 words. Your teaching stinks. And look how angry you got." And the yogi goes, "Shit, you're absolutely right." And takes off his robes and becomes a student of the raggedy yogi. And because that person didn't have this unshakable faith yet.
Mm,
And this is what my teachers do in Japan. They press you, they push you. They say, "Frans, you're teaching about no anger and worry. So let me see. Did you get angry or worried?" So if we do this in today's teachings, right? Sometimes I try to do it as a joke with some other teachers or whatever. And if they do get angry, then we can see they haven't really developed the embodiment of the precepts yet.
mm,
That is very easy. In a way, it's very easy to do,
mm.
right? We know when you have a partner, your husband or your wife or whatever, they know exactly the points to press, right? So, but these are great tools to see then, do we get angry or not angry? And then if we do get angry, then we actually have to thank the other person and say, "Oh, thank you, because you showed me I have still a lot of work to do. I still do get pissed off. I
Mm,
still am worried. I still am fearful. So thank you so much, because now I need to do more work."
yeah, yeah. Wow, yeah. Amazing, amazing. Um, there's one thing I just wanna cover this before we wrap up. But I know when you were talking about before about like the two candles coming together, to the two great bright lights in the healing sessions, and something I've talked a lot with other Reiki practitioners about is in my healing sessions when I always start like at the head, and when I'm working around the head, I can feel their heartbeat in my fingertips, and then
Mhm.
I'm also aware of my heartbeat, and
Yeah.
then it's like two heartbeats then become one. The beating like kind of joins forces, and you go into this sort of like bioresonance
Yeah.
of this space. Is that something that you've experienced and felt?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like an entrainment in English. And an entrainment is almost like you tap one tuning fork and the other tuning fork starts to vibrate on the same level. In simple language, I always see it like this. As soon as I touch the glass, we might say Frans is touching the glass, but that is not true. It's only one perception because the glass is now also touching me.
Mm,
It can never be a one-way street. Impossible. So as soon as I touch the wall is also touching me. As
mm,
soon as you lay on the table and we might say Frans is touching Ian, but at the same time, Ian is also touching me. So
yeah,
it's exactly like this.
yeah.
If we see it, oh, France is doing a treatment on Ian, is beginner's level,
Mm,
is really basic beginner's level. Because at the same time, Ian is also already 100% the universe. And me, I'm also 100% the universe. So there already is like this.
mm,
We actually don't even have to make a connection. This is also beginner's level because we are already interconnected.
mm,
Very simple. You live in the UK, right?
mm,
I
yeah.
live here in Holland. It's not so far, right?
Mm,
1 hour flight, maybe. There's no wall somewhere in between
mm,
where you're breathing English air and I'm breathing Dutch air. We're already breathing the same particles.
yeah, yeah,
So we are already like this.
mm, yeah.
So when we say I need to make a connection to Reiki, or I need to make a connection to my client, or I need to connect to my own bright light, actually we're telling ourselves that we feel disconnected.
Mm,
We don't need to make a connection to our bright light. Why? Because we're it already. We've never been disconnected.
yeah,
If I do hands-on healing on you, I don't need to make a connection with you because we are already like this. The
mm,
baseline is already like this.
yeah,
I don't need to connect to Reiki because I'm already 100% the universe. I
mm,
cannot say, now I'm not the universe, and now I'm going to connect to the universe, and now I'm the universe. Impossible. Right?
yeah.
If we really think about it. So this is why we have to have self-responsibility and think what we read or what we hear, and does it make sense or is it nonsense?
Mm, yeah, yeah,
And there's a lot of excuse me, sorry everybody. There's a lot of nonsense out there.
yeah, 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 there is. Yeah. Well, Franz, thank you so much for joining me today for this deep dive into you, into your Reiki, and to Reiki itself, of which we all are a part of. It's been wonderful to connect. I hope to do so again in the future at some point. It would
Yeah,
be lovely.
thanks.
But whatever you do today, have a beautiful day. And if everybody who watched this video enjoyed, do subscribe to the channel and see you again soon.
Thank you, Ian.